Hello, friends. I'm Kerry Farr. Welcome to In Your Corner. Two of my dear friends are here, John and Valerie Collins. And John is a former professional boxer, was a national champion when he was a young man. I knew him, and he could fight. I mean, he could fight a lot. And Valerie, her dad, Reverend Leroy Ozier, was one of my dearest friends who has gone on to meet the Lord, but he used to help me train fighters, and we traveled many miles together, stayed in the same room together. We were very close. Man, I love you guys. Appreciate you so much for joining me on In Your Corner. John, I'll shake your hand.
Thank you.
Valerie, so good to see both of you. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for inviting us. We just was looking forward to the fellowship and being with you. And, you know, I know you and I go a long way back. And
to about 85.
Yeah.
And, you remember 85, don't you, John?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
That was when you was in your natural prime.
Yeah. You were working with the great Darryl Fast Fist Fuller.
He was bad, but you know, Darryl said to me, you know, before I ever met you, he said, man, we need to go work with John Collins. And he told me about you. And
right.
And of course, I've been to Jackson, Tennessee, managed him and Donald Bowers for a time. Two great fighters.
Two great fighters from Jackson.
And Jackson had so many great fighters. We came in, and you're just a kid back then. But, you know, I've had Jerome Coffey on the show, and Coffey was one of the greatest amateur boxers that ever lived in America. You know, won every kind of national title, was in the Olympic trials, fought for the world championship, and he didn't like working with Fuller because Fuller didn't know how to take it easy.
No, he didn't take it easy on nobody.
Yeah, if you got in there with Darryl Fuller,
you better be ready. You better be ready.
I mean, he would put a hurt on you.
He would.
Yeah, and so, but you could hang with him.
I got in there and did the best I could.
Well, I wish I'd have been in a position to have managed your career, John. But you know, and you guys had that great coach, Rayford Collins.
We did.
You know, Jackie Beard, all of the Beard brothers.
Jackie, Ricky, Obie, Aubrey, Donald Bowers, Darryl Fast Fist Fuller. We had Kenneth Kidd. We just had a lot of great fighters in that gym.
A lot of national champions.
Yeah, and the difference, you know, Nashville had some great fighters, but a lot of the fighters from Nashville weren't originally from Nashville.
No, Mike McCallum, who ended up being world champion, came from Jamaica. He was on that Clint Jackson punching posse team. Jackson was the co-captain.
Yeah, and he was from Alabama.
He was from Evergreen, Alabama.
Yeah.
Him and Ray Leonard.
Bumpus.
Yeah, Bumpus from Tacoma, Washington. And who else? Jerome was on that
Jerome
team.
was the only original from Nashville. But all of the Jackson fighters was born and raised in Jackson, Tennessee.
You guys came up there. What had happened in Nashville, Sheriff Fate Thomas hired Clint Jackson to be the coach.
Right.
And he gave all those guys jobs as jailers.
He did.
And so all these great fighters came in, and Nashville had this incredible team, and none of the local fighters could fight those guys.
No.
But, you know, you got, like you say, you guys from Jackson, Tennessee.
We weren't afraid of those guys.
No, you weren't afraid. You guys were afraid of Rayford Collins.
Rayford had us where we weren't afraid of anybody.
Yeah.
You know, he trained us hard. We put the work in. And when you're in the gym with great fighters, as we were with, you know, the Beards and Donald Bowers and Fast Fist, you either got better or you got gone.
That's the truth, wasn't it? You know, and years ago, I mean, going way back, and a lot of people won't know these names, but Jackie Beard won the Olympic trials. Was it 80? He won
in 1980.
In 1980, he won the Olympic trials, and he had a brother named Ricky Beard.
Exactly.
And they called Ricky Tricky Ricky.
Yeah.
Because Ricky was tricky.
Yeah, he was.
One time I went over there, Reverend Ozier, Valerie's dad and I, Reverend told me, he said, Ricky Beard's got a box ring he's going to sell you for $50.
He told me about that.
And so we went over, and so I gave Ricky $50.
He said I was over there taking it apart.
We went over to get the ring. It belonged to the Boys and Girls Club. And they wouldn't give it to us. They'd never give them permission to sell it. But
that's him.
But tragically, he crawled under a house and
got electrocuted. He touched a hot wire.
Yeah.
And tragically, you know, he lost his life. But if you ever met him, you'd never forget him.
No, you certainly. He'd say, "Let me hold $10."
Yeah.
I'd say, "Well, for what?" Until. I said, "Until when?" Until.
Until.
And so I knew you guys. I knew all you guys so well.
Yeah.
So, But you know what I wanted to talk to you guys about today, and Valerie, you know I loved your dad, and
He loved you
we had
too.
so many wonderful times together. Today in America, we have so many homes where there is a single parent. There's a mom and no dad. And I'm talking about in all of America, in all races. And what impresses me about you guys, I mean, John, you were always just a good, solid guy. And you were disciplined because of the boxing. But I think you grew up without a father.
I did.
Yeah. And then the two of you got married. And over the last 35 years, you've not only raised 3 kids, you've got 3 kids. Tell us, let's let Valerie talk a minute.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about these 3 children and what's happened with your 3 kids.
Okay, our son, Jonathan Collins, actually Dr. Jonathan Collins, he graduated from Morehouse College with a degree in English. Then he went on to UCLA and got a master's in African American Studies. Then he continued with UCLA and got his PhD in political science.
Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Collins.
Yes. Now he's assistant professor of Brown University at Rhode Island, Providence, Rhode Island.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes, and we have twin daughters, Aaliyah and Ananda. Aaliyah graduated from Fisk University. It's
Here in
an
Nashville.
HBCU, right? She also attended University of Ghana for a semester. She went over there and stayed about 3 months in Ghana. Graduated from Fisk, and now she's at Harvard, and she's working on her master's in divinity. Ananda, her twin, graduated from Jackson State University in Jackson, Mississippi. She is at Syracuse University, just got her master's, and she's going through a PhD program. So in a couple of years, she also will have her PhD.
Wow, I'm just blown away. I mean, here's a guy that just was a tremendous fighter, tremendous boxer in his day. But you, John, what was it that caused you to want to raise such good children?
Well, to be honest about it, when Valerie and I first met, we started dating in 1982. And we were having a conversation, and I told her, we mentioned kids. I was like, oh, no, I don't want any kids. Because the way I grew up with my mom raising all of us by herself, I didn't want to, I just didn't want
to see kids go through that.
Yeah.
And when he said that, I was saying to myself, I'm going to have to get rid of him. 'Cause I want kids.
Yeah. She didn't tell me that till later. But anyway, and I said, no, I didn't want any kids. I just, no. And she said one thing that changed my mind. She said, well, you'll have an opportunity to change that. And I thought, wow, she's right. And so later on in the years, we had our kids, and I had that opportunity to change that, to father my children, to be there, and make sure they had everything they needed, encouragement. I wanted them to I expressed to them as they were young. Hey, we're gonna go to college. Everybody's college is not an option; it's a must. And Valerie and I were in agreement with that we're gonna college educate all our kids, support them till they all their dreams, because I didn't have that type of support that I think I could have done more if I would have had a father. And a father makes a difference in a home.
Yeah.
With children.
Yeah. And Valerie, you grew up, you had a mom and a dad at 18 Wildleaf Cove.
Yes.
And I won't tell what town it is. I don't want anybody to run over to your house. But you grew up over. That's how many times I've been to your house. I still know the address.
Yeah.
But you had a good family structure.
I did. I grew up as a PK.
Pastor's kid.
Exactly.
Yeah. Preacher's kid.
Yeah, so we were always in church, which was a good thing. And I had my mother and my father. They both supported us and helped us in our dreams and our desires. And my dad graduated from Union University and I also graduated from Union. I kind of followed in his footsteps. So they were really solid on having a family, you know, and that was important to me too. Even though I knew John didn't come in from that same structure, but he was a good person and a disciplined person. So it just worked for us. We wanted to make sure that we were successful in our marriage, and we also wanted to make sure that our children was successful too. And so far they are.
You know, John, you and I were talking on the phone a couple weeks ago, and you told me, and you know, while we were talking, I thought, you know, we have so many athletes on and have over the years, and I thought that's wonderful, but I thought the story of you and Valerie and the successful family that you've had, and of course, Valerie, you grew up in a Christian home.
I did.
You know, you were taught to, you know, to give your life to the Lord and love the Lord, and you know, and John, did you grow up in a Christian home as well?
I did not.
Yeah.
We didn't attend church. Matter of fact, Reverend O's is the one that got me in church.
Yeah.
He, when we first started dating, I would come over there and see Valerie, and I'd come on Sundays after they got out of church, and he would ask me, "Did you go to church this morning?" I said, "Yeah, I watched it on TV." I watched it on TV, and I didn't even watch it on TV. I just would tell him that so he wouldn't keep
messing with you.
Yeah. So I guess several Sundays I'd go over there, and he would say, "Where'd you go, Bedside Baptist again this morning?" I said, "Yeah." But he kept encouraging me, "Well, just come. If you just come." And so finally, I said, "Well, let me go so I can get him
off my back.
back."
And he wasn't the type of guy that was. He
didn't push you.
He was so
was.
gentle with people.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so when he seen me walk in the door, a smile came on his face. And when I walked in there, you know, when you go to church and you hear the word, you don't leave out the same way you went in.
Yeah.
And I did not. I was amazed from the service, and so amazed that I kept going back and joined. And he baptized me. And so, you know, he always used to say, you know, I came around, and he said, "I was wondering why you was coming around. Now I found out why you was coming around. You was after my daughter."
He knew why you came around.
Yeah.
But
and
you know, the fact that you were a boxer, I know he loved that.
he did. We had
loved-
so many boxing conversations, and he was one of my best supporters. Even here recently, this year, you know, I was
You were in the
Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And before he passed away, he would always tell me, "You're gonna be in the Hall of Fame." I was like, Reb, you know, I ain't gonna put me in there. He's like, "Yeah, you're gonna be in there. You deserve to be in there." And I just kind of like, well, Reb, I don't think they're gonna put me in there. And that day was so special to me because he was the first one that told me I was gonna be in there, in that Hall of Fame, because he knew what I had accomplished.
Yeah.
He knew better. I mean, he thought more of what I accomplished than I did.
Yeah.
You know, he just always thought more of people than they thought of themselves. And he was just that kind of man. And he was always encouraging to me, and always would tell my son about my career, because he told him more about it than I did.
Yeah.
And so by me watching him with his family, taught me to be, that's how I learned a lot about being a father.
Watching him.
Watching him.
Yeah.
Because he was so good with his children. He always took time for them. He always sat down, and I would always see him having conversations with them. And you know, even Valerie would tell me, you know, she would always go to him for advice, and anything he could do for him, he did.
Yeah.
And he always believed in family. I saw it for myself. he was a family man. He believed in his family, and he believed in family get-togethers and family spending time with each other. And
I'm glad that we're having kind of a memorial for Reverend Leroy
Yeah,
Ogier today, because I
that's true.
loved him.
Yeah.
And Valerie, there's so many people that are watching that do not have the structure that you had in your home, the joy and the relationship that the two of you had. And when I was talking to John a couple weeks ago on the phone, he talked about how as you came together as husband and wife, you know, it wasn't always easy, but that you both were willing to talk to one another and you could work things out.
Yes.
How do you think you and John were able to have such a successful marriage?
Well, we came into marriage, well, I say we eventually learned that I have a life, and he honors and respects my life. He has a life too, and I honor and respect his life.
Even when he was going to the boxing gym every day, right? Didn't like that as much, probably.
Well, I really didn't know that much about boxing, even though my dad was involved in it, but I didn't really know that much about boxing. But I was saying we have a life too together. So he lets me live my life, I let him live his life, and then we have a life together.
Yeah. And so, and so what do you think it was that allowed your children to, you know, become so successful?
Well, John is so disciplined in everything, and I think that comes from being an athlete.
Yeah.
Even on his job, he doesn't miss work. He will go if he's not feeling well.
He doesn't call in sick, he crawls in sick.
Yeah, almost, yeah. But he has been so disciplined in everything. And that's the sign of a good athlete. And they saw his determination. And me, I wasn't really an athlete, but I always was disciplined to carry out, to finish
Get
through.
it done.
Yes.
But you know, what you said is very interesting, because Bernard Swift-Kick Robinson is a 3-time world champion kickboxer. And he owns a very nice business. He owns a very large MMA kickboxing karate studio in Nashville, Tennessee. He's a successful African-American man that's done very well. And he said his dad was military, and his dad was so structured, kind of like John wasn't military, but John was an athlete. And you told me yourself that it was boxing that gave you the discipline.
it did. It did.
Because you had to get up in the morning and run.
We ran when I was in high school. We ran at me and Daryl, Fast Fish. We met on the corner of Cartmel. You know, they lived off East Chester there, and we met on the corner of Cartmel every morning before we went to high school, and ran before we went to high school. And not a lot of kids gonna get up at 5 o'clock in the morning.
No.
And run before going to high school. We ran, I guess, at least 4 miles before we went to high school in the morning time. So, you know, and we had to, you know, Rayford was one of these trainers that.
Talking about the great Rayford Collins.
Who coached all us guys into greatness, and put Jackson, Tennessee on the map for his boxing.
You guys weren't afraid to work. I mean, Fuller, you weren't going to outwork Daryl Fuller.
You know, and Daryl thought a lot of me, because there wasn't very many could get in there with him and give him good work and stay.
No, I've seen men twice your size that didn't want to be in there with him, you know. I mean, it was, you know, he had one speed, and buddy, he would hurt you.
He did.
And he was my height. He was 5'7" and 140 pounds of solid steel.
Powerful.
Oh, he was powerful. Yeah. And you know, Daryl and I, he won the Continental of America's WBC championship, and then later that year we fought Gary Hinton, who had just lost to the great Aaron Pryor, very close 15-round decision. I didn't want the fight, and Daryl wanted the fight. Daryl fought him and lost the decision, but Daryl broke his nose and cut his eye.
He was powerful.
You know, and if we'd come along a year later, this was 85, just a year before Julio Cesar Chavez got started, we'd have had a great payday with the great Chavez.
Yeah. Let me tell you a great story about Daryl Fast Fist Fuller. I can't remember exactly what year it was in the Mid-South Golden Gloves. Daryl originally was boxing at 132. Well, that year he decided to drop down to featherweight to 125. And so we had the West Tennessee Golden Gloves. He didn't have any opponents for the West Tennessee, so the Mid-South came in. Well, they had to weigh in, and I know you know Daryl. Well, when we had to weigh in, Daryl was supposed to have been fighting at the featherweight.
Yeah.
He didn't make the weight. He went over there and signed his own card, but they caught him. So they was like, nah, this not a signature. He signed his own card. Well, so that disqualified him. But whoever was supposed to fight at the 139 didn't show up. So they said, well, we got the 139 open. That's the only thing you can fight. The referee said, we'll take that.
So he jumped 20 pounds.
He jumped 20 pounds in the Mid-South. And he stopped every one of them.
Knocked out everybody.
Every one of them. And one of them was supposed to have been real good. His name was Ollie Collins, out of, I think he was out of Mississippi. But anyway, he stopped every one of them.
And that's something. That's a blessing.
And nobody could fight him inside. You fight him inside, you might as well forget it.
That's over.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we hear he's in bad shape. And unfortunately, we're out of time with John, Valerie. I love you guys. Thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to share your story on In Your Corner. And if anybody wanted to connect with you, I guess they just find you like on Facebook.
Yeah, we're both on Facebook.
John and Valerie Collins, Collins. Friends, thank you so much for watching the program today. We got a very important message coming up and then some music after that. We'll see you again next week on the next edition of In Your Corner. Our mission at In Your Corner Ministries is to go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. To that end, we've produced over 500 TV programs that have aired into over 200 countries worldwide through international television. But producing TV programs is a small portion of our ministry outreach. We do short-term medical mission trips and food distributions to the destitute Haitian Batayes of the Dominican Republic and poor villages in Central America. Friends, that's why we're here, because the greatest three needs in these villages are, number one, there's no medical care. If you do not have money, you can forget about getting medical care. Secondly, there is abject poverty. Most of the people work here for less than $5 a day from sunup to sundown, either doing construction or working in the sugarcane fields. And thirdly, there is no clean drinking water in the villages. Everyone has to purchase water to drink. So you can be the answer to their prayers. Friends, you know, as followers of Jesus Christ, we're benevolent. All of us are benevolent. But sometimes the need is much greater than anything that we can do. So if God lays it upon your heart to be a part of this ministry, to help us, help others, or carry the gospel around the world, we'd love to hear from you. You can call me at 615-415-0504. And a lot of times this program airs in the middle of the night and we don't answer the phone. Leave your name and number, we'll call you back. Or you can email me at kwpharr@gmail.com. But ask the Lord if He'd have you partner with this ministry to reach a lost and dying world for Jesus Christ.
On a hill far away stood an old rugged cross, the emblem of suffering and shame. And I love that old cross where the dearest and best for a world of lost sinners was slain. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. Thank you, Betsy. To the old rugged cross I will ever be true. Its shame and reproach gladly bear. Then what? Till He calls